of Entheoradio. This is your captain speaking. This is Captain Hugh T. Alkemi. I'm here with a very special guest, Mecca Wagner Brown. Say hello, Mecca.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about, as usual, our consciousness podcast, shamanism, psychedelics, and altered states for healing. Mecca is this amazing woman. She has earned a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology, and she has also tandem studied human behavior and kinesiology. I say that right? Kinesiology? Yep.
Yes.
And then she is a yoga teacher, certificate holder, yoga teacher, Qigong teacher trainer, and hypnotherapist. And she also performs some techniques, which you'll see other videos of us doing later, emotional freedom techniques, and it's also known as EFT. She's an entrepreneur and an author. Tell us the name of your book.
The book is titled Little Things Lead to Happiness, and it's my second book, one that's for the general public, to help people make small changes in their life to start their change journey to happiness.
Awesome. So this whole lifestyle that you've led started, it seems like at a young age, finding consciousness, awareness. Tell us how you got to, I guess, to the school age where you started becoming the degree holder in psychology.
When I was young, my mother was an advocate of natural healing. Anytime my sister or I would, have a tummy ache or headache or anything like that, she would always have us lay down and take deep breaths, close our eyes, and basically balance ourselves and heal ourselves. And she meditated, and so we meditated. And so I always was interested in that, including doing yoga with my mother, and interested in the natural healing. She was into natural healing, trying to stay away from prescription medications as much as possible and over the counter, and really living in harmony with nature. As I went through school, in high school, I was introduced to self-hypnosis. I was an athlete, and so using that to prepare for, competitions, things like that, I started to realize that my meditation could blend over into this self-hypnosis. The whole time I've always been interested in human behavior. I find people very interesting. I like to people watch. That's one of my favorite pastimes. And so when I started college, I actually started as a pre-med student. I was going to be a doctor, and I spent my first 2 semesters taking a lot of classes on that. That's why my second major is kinesiology, because I had so many classes in science and human bio, I might as well. So I did flip over to psychology, and so finished up with my psych degree.
Well, we'll pause there for a second.
Sure.
Our audience, I think about 50% of them doesn't know what kinesiology is. Can you unpack that?
Kinesiology is basically the function of the body, how the body works. A lot of people who work in sports medicine, or even the sports trainers you see, they have kinesiology degrees, and kinesiology focus. So how the body works internally, whether it's processing of foods to energy and muscle movements and the whole mechanics of the body. So it's the overall function of the body, knowing how the hormones are balanced, knowing how different brain chemicals are balanced, knowing how each organ has a part to play in the function of the body and your overall health, and the importance of the muscles and stretching and prepping. Like, a lot of sports trainers know it's important to stretch before you start going out and just playing the game, because we know what happens to the muscles when they're in static state for so long, and that in order to perform better and minimize injury, what do you need to do? And when there's pain, when there's injury, we know where that's at, and how to mitigate that or heal that. So kinesiology is the overall function of the body, including the role of the fascia, which is really important in Qigong as well. The fascia, the tendons, the ligaments, and the muscles all together in the function of the body.
Excellent. So tell us, I don't know if I interrupted your story. Finish your story and then tell us about that Qigong, because a lot of people are interested in that and how it relates to
Yes.
healing basically.
So just like with anybody, you know, we all have a story. So my life took a different path when I got my degree in psychology. I did not go into psychology. I ended up in the corporate path for a while, but while I was doing that, I had this interest still in human behavior and natural healing. And I did a lot of self-research and such. And then I decided I'm going to get my certification in yoga teaching. So as I was working on that, the group that certified me blended Qigong, Shaolin Qigong, into the yoga practice. And so it was enough for me to be able to teach a Qigong class and a yoga class, and also to maybe blend a little bit. Qigong is a martial art, technically. A lot of people know what Tai Chi is. Tai Chi is a dance. And the movements in Tai Chi works the overall body. In Qigong, it's the master of your energy, and each movement has a specific purpose. And that's why really practitioners in Qigong, it's more of a medical Qigong. So depending on what the person is struggling with, there'll be specific movements prescribed to help them with that issue. Knowing where stagnant energy is stored in different organs of your body, because certain movements are either cleansing your kidneys or your liver or your intestines or your stomach, or supporting your lungs or your heart, and so on. So depending on what it is that you're working on, or what your purpose is for practicing the Qigong, then the movements are prescribed accordingly. And I find that a lot of people enjoy Qigong when they do it because they want to experience that feeling of the movement of energy and that euphoria that comes with the energy. And some people don't want to go through the yoga practice. They think they have to be able to bend like a pretzel. And so they're, you know, kind of standoffish when it comes to yoga classes. And they enjoy the Qigong class. And within 45 minutes, they're shaking, they're sweating, and we're really not, you know, it's not like it's a interval training, right? It's a lot of deep diaphragmatic breathing with slow controlled movements coordinated with those breaths. And it really brings people into that space where they can feel that connection. And so I have a deep love for Qigong, and people who do it and experience it tend to feel the same way. So
have you seen those? And I love deep diving into the internet with Qigong research. And I've done some Shaolin Qigong in Las Vegas for a couple of years, and Shaolin, I guess it was 5 animal forms and Shaolin stuff from San Diego. I love Qigong. I think it's so amazing and fascinating. Have you seen them play around on the internet where I've seen a Qigong master like light something on fire, like a piece of paper. Have you seen that? Oh my gosh. Have you ever seen it in person?
I haven't seen it in person, no.
Are you a fire starter?
I am not. So there are masters that get to that level that they can do that. There was even a master that, you know, there was a little documentary done on it, and then he went quiet again because he didn't like the attention he was getting. Because when they get to that level, they shun away from accolades and praise and, you know, that sort of thing. So they're very focused on just service, even though they have to get paid for it, right? But they don't look at it as, because then it's ego at that point,
right?
And they don't
that is less
like that.
There's something about ego that is less expansive for consciousness.
Exactly. So, and this practitioner, he could just touch people and they would feel the electricity, they'd feel the energy, and he could heal people. That takes a lot. And there's a lot of special practice that you have to do on a regular basis to get there. I am not one of those, humbly so. But I love sharing the basics. I'm working on a certification in Taoist medical Qigong. And,
Wow.
Even though one's called Taoist, one's called Shaolin, they're very similar. The 5 animal, the 5 element, and so on, right? There's
Yep.
different things, but you see the similarities. Sometimes they have different names, but they're very similar in the movements and such. But it's just people think that they need to know all of them. There are thousands of movements in Qigong. Will I ever know all of them? Probably not. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with taking what resonates with me and helping my clients and just keep learning and sharing. And it's a beautiful practice. And people who are open to it, I give them their prescriptions, their
Yeah.
prescriptive movements.
So, have you heard, and I'm not sure how pervasive this is in the Qigong community, that there's like a esoteric form of energy cultivation where you're basically cultivating your next lifetime. You're cultivating the spirit fetus of your next incarnation. Have you heard of that?
Sure. Yeah, I have heard of that. A lot of it is around also clearing your karma from your past lives and your current, trying to clear the karma to prepare for your next one, so that you're learning the lessons that you're supposed to learn now, so that you're not repeating them. And that's part of that practice, is really preparing yourself for that next life.
I find that form of esoteric, kind of like direct, actionable mysticism to be really helpful, at least for calming the mind and helping us be in healthful experiences and decision making throughout our lives. Even if it's just like a mental construct of a future lifetime and clearing karma. Who knows, past lives. You seem like a gal who believes in past lives. And just the other day, I mean, I do too, but I wanted to paint an interesting picture for our listeners. Just the other day, I had a session with you and you talked about karma and past lives in the session with me. That's just an everyday thing for you, eh? Clients, you talk about past lives all the time.
Well, yes. I have to respect a person for where they're at. And so I test them out, where are they at? And I happen to have had a conversation with you prior to your session. So I knew you were open to that concept already. Other people, I'll ask them, what are your thoughts about, multiple lives, or past lives? And then I'll approach it a little differently and say, in talking about these different things, I have to be sensitive to a person's beliefs and such, and I honor everyone's space. So whoever they are, whatever they believe, I test the waters, see where they're at, and I just go with it. And if they're not open to it, that's okay. I'll still heal them energetically, myself, and we just won't discuss it further. But I am open to discussing that. I've even done some past life regressions, and it's not for entertainment purposes. This is for healing purposes.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to see where you wanted to go. Let's go into those past lives. Let's hear about past life regressions. She's a hypnotist, everybody. Watch out now. Watch out.
Yes, using hypnotherapy, and hypnotherapy is not anything scary. It's a deep state of relaxation. I can't make you do anything. What I'm helping you do is relax and kind of drop the walls of the ego and the conscious mind and allow the subconscious to open up and allow messages and, images to come forward. the deepest state of relaxation that people get into, it's almost like they're asleep. And, so they report, they hear me, then they don't hear me, and it's kind of back and forth. But as soon as I count them out, they're out. But in past life regression, I don't want you to go that deep because you're going to speak to me. So we take you kind of to the mid-level. You're very relaxed, and I take you back, and there's a method to take you back and back to in utero, right? And then to the light, and then allow whatever to come to you that is needed at this time. I can't say the life right before this one, or we have to, what is it that you need? What messages do you need to heal right now? And so then the person will start to report. And I take my time because a lot of people feel pressure. Well, I don't see anything. I don't feel anything. I don't get, and it's not like you're going to see a movie or anything. So I tell people they'll just come to you, and so just let it come to you and just tell me. And I just wait and be patient and just keep helping the person. And then eventually things start to unfold. And as soon as it starts to unfold, it just starts unfolding very quickly. And the person just starts telling me more and more. And I want to know, how do you feel? Do you see a mirror? Can you see yourself? Can you, who's around you? What kind of impressions do you get? And there are things that come out of that. And what we do is we go through a healing process through this, bringing you back and healing back through into this life, and then coming through that. And then I usually like to seal that off with a little EFT afterwards. Usually in standard sessions, I do EFT followed by hypnotherapy because we have targeted purposes, right? Usually.
Yeah.
But through past life regression, anything could happen. So I do EFT afterwards for anything that they've experienced, just to make sure we've cleared out the energy bodies and all is good. So yeah, they're amazing sessions, and they can be done within the standard 1 hour sessions that I offer. So it's not an extra fee. It's all part of the session.
Give us some interesting examples. I kind of want to jump onto what if a person had this horrible past, or they had a lot of trauma, and then they see it. Give us some really interesting examples of stuff that you've either sat in on or you've worked through.
So I have one gentleman that has had a pattern of relationships, and he doesn't understand why he keeps having this pattern. And in this pattern, he also wants to be the savior. So he basically allows for a dysfunctional relationship because they want to be saved and he wants to save them. So he requested a past life regression. So we did so. And what happened was that he ended up in somewhere in the 1800s in the West, here in the United States. And he was attending his mother's funeral. And his father was with him. And there was a young girl there that smiled to him and such. And then we fast forwarded, and then it ended up that he married this girl. But he was a hard worker and he wanted to provide for his family. And so I took him to the death of that life. I said, before you actually pass, where are you now? And he was laying on his deathbed in his home, and his wife was crying. And all he said was, I'm sorry, I didn't spend more time, here with you. And that he loves her, but he spent a lot of time working and providing and not really relishing the love that they had and his family and children, right? So he had regrets, deep, deep regrets. So we went through and started healing those regrets, and healing that whole intention that he wanted to save. He wanted to go back and do it again. And then when I brought him back to the in-between, his mother who had passed was there. And so we went through some more healing there with his mother, and then brought him back through into this life. And it took him a little while. It takes people a while to really integrate what just happened and to settle with it, because then you might start getting more messages, because later that day he started getting more impressions about who this person was and who he was, and then that will happen, and healing through that. And so we kind of tapped through that a little bit, and so now he's in a space where he's healing and starting to build his self-love, and knowing now he sees the pattern now clearly, what he's been doing in this life. And so it's helped really open his eyes to what he's doing, and why he's doing it. And so we've started healing. We healed in that life, and then we're healing in this life. So there are a lot of different things that could happen. I have witnessed one where a person had chronic pain in their shoulder blade, and the doctors, because I have received clients where they said, all the doctors say they don't know why. They don't know why I have this issue, right? And so now they think it's psychosomatic, right? It's all in your head, right?
Go see the hypnotist.
Exactly. Then they come
I know
see
you
me.
like the word hypnotherapist, but I use the word hypnotist because I'm old fashioned.
I know, that's okay. But this one person, this wasn't a client of mine. It was a client of someone who was certifying me. And she had this recorded and showed it to us. And this person had this chronic pain in their shoulder blade. And again, psychosomatic, right? Nobody knew why, but it was very painful. And so she did a past life regression, only to find that in his life, it could have been the life prior to this, he was stabbed in the back in that area. And that's how he died. And so they went through and healed that and released it. And then his pain was gone when he came back. Yeah. And, it's something that needed to be released and needed to be healed. And maybe, and he was actually stabbed in the back because he had betrayed someone. And so it was something he had done that caused this other person to lash out in anger and kill him. So it was him now saying he was sorry, and asking for forgiveness and things like that. So it's like a karma, right? Clearing that karma, really letting go of that. And then it cleared out the energetic pain that he was having from a past life. So it's very interesting. Lots of different things can happen in past life regressions. And, some people might get frustrated if they don't get as much as they'd like. Like, I want to know if I was, a queen, in the past.
Cleopatra or something, yeah.
Or whatever, and I can't do that. This is not entertainment purposes, right? This is therapeutic. And as we do it, I ask for whatever messages, whatever this person needs to heal is what needs to come forward. So,
you kidding me? I've seen people cluck like a chicken under hypnosis. So I think you can turn somebody into a queen if they want to be.
No,
you don't want
no.
to. It's against their will. Eh?
No. But
well,
yeah,
so
good stuff.
I have heard through various sources, having studied neurolinguistic programming and some hypnosis myself as a child,
right.
that you can't hypnotize anyone to do something that they're unwilling to do.
Correct.
That those people that are on stage clucking like a chicken want to act like a chicken on some psychological level.
Right.
And
that's why you'll see the stage hypnotists, they will do something and they're watching in the audience for people that are very receptive, because they're even when I get someone who has never been in hypnotherapy before or ever been hypnotized, depending on the person, I'll do a test to see what their suggestibility is. Because there's also a suggestibility that's emotional or physical. Some people are more and then that kind of changes your verbiage when you're doing the hypnosis. People who tend to have control challenges, you want to use verbiage like, and maybe you would like to now do this, and maybe now you might choose to, instead of just telling them, so it just depends on the person. So the stage hypnotists, they'll look at the audience and start to handpick people based on their susceptibility. And then when they're up there, notice how sometimes they'll tell people to sit down, because now they're saying, okay, now that they're on stage, they're maybe troublemakers for them, right? They're not going to listen very easily. So you can sit down and you can sit down, right? So they want the person that's the most susceptible to be their entertainment. And that's what happens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I remember this funny word that is no longer used contextually in the circles. As far as I know, modern hypnosis circles don't talk about mesmerization, but have you studied the origin of that word? And the person, I guess his name was like Mesmer. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What that was really interesting. What can you tell our audience about that particular origin story of hypnosis?
Well, they found that, people can be mesmerized. That's why you see the swinging watch, the pocket watch, or you have the metronome. I have a metronome here that was gifted to me, and when I started my business, I don't use it, but I could if I wanted to. A lot of times people will become mesmerized even when they're driving. Have you ever driven long distance and then you're watching the lines on the road pass, and then you're just kind of staring at them and you're mesmerized, right? That's what it can do. Even like the spinning spiral, right? The black and white spiral, you look at it and it seems to be moving inwards, right? And you're mesmerized. This is when you are so focused, you've now come into an altered state of consciousness. You're in an altered state of consciousness when you meditate well. You're in an altered state when you're really engrossed in a movie that you're crying with them, or you jump when they're, they scare you. That's being mesmerized by something. And when you are mesmerized, you are in this altered state of consciousness that has now dropped away your conscious thinking, right? And your ego, and it has opened your subconscious to suggestion and reprogramming. So that's what Dr. Mesmer found, is that when people were in those states, he could tell them this. And that's where the storytelling technique started with Dr. Erickson and Dr. Mesmer was
Dr. Milton Erickson.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yes. A very, very famous hypnotherapist.
He's here. He was here for a while in Phoenix.
They do storytelling. So they get their voices into this, this tone that's very sleepy. And as they're telling the story, they kind of do it in a little bit of a sing-songy type of way. And they just talk to you. So as they change their voice and they change it into the almost like a rocking, it starts to mesmerize the listener when you're listening to them. Because when I do hypnotherapy, I have to do my hypnotherapist voice, right? It starts to lower, get quieter and slower, right? Different emphasis here and there, up and down. And you can do an awake hypnotherapy. I don't have to have you lay back and relax and close your eyes here behind me to do it. I could just be speaking to you. And as I'm telling you a story, in the story is built-in metaphors to help you with what it is you have challenges with. So if you're dealing with anxiety over a presentation you have to do tomorrow morning, I could start telling you this story and eventually take away that anxiety just through a story that I'm telling you and how I'm telling you. without interruption. There are a lot of hypnotherapists that will do that. And I've done that a few times with clients, especially clients who don't like, they need that control, right? They don't want to close their eyes and let you just, put them into a deep state of relaxation. So someone who's really highly anxious that can't relax, I just talk to them and we just start talking and moving through it that way. So there are lots of different techniques. And yes, back in the day, then Dr. Mesmer, he figured that out and he loved to use the pocket watch. And that's why also there's a new trauma technique, and I forget MD, I forget what it is. There's actually someone here in this building that practices it, but it's a light bar and the lights, run back and forth. And so it's another way of mesmerizing a person, bringing them into an altered state as they talk through and heal their trauma. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And it just depends on the person, like what they're most receptive to and susceptible to. So.
All right, Mecca. I am so excited. You can't see me. If I was a dog, I'd be wagging my tail. This is so interesting to me because as a consciousness researcher, as a shamanic practitioner, people go into these altered states all the time, and I see it. And then sometimes I'm there when they're administering, or I'm administering medicine, sacred plants and fungi to them, and I see them go into these altered states. And there are triggers. There are certain things that naturally trigger the altered states. Music, for example. We talked about movies, scenes, conversation, certain points that are being made. A good example on the retreat over the weekend, a woman kept talking about time. And she says, Hugh, how long have I known you? And I say, with the bodies that we currently have in this current timeline, about 6 months. And she's just, that wasn't the answer I think she was looking for. I think she was like, how many lifetimes, how often have we been on this track of healing? And, these sacred plants feel familiar. This altered state feels familiar. Can you speak to that? And so I chose not to speak to it because I wanted her to be here and now,
right,
to recognize where we were. But she was definitely feeling that state.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that happens with sound healing and entrainment and singing bowls
and drumming
apparently
circles.
Yeah, it happens with drumming, and that's one of the most natural originating techniques for the shamanic practice. And then dance, it happens in dance. People go into ecstatic states. In fact, when I was studying in history, mostly like Asiatic history and Asiatic philosophy in college, when we got to the shamanism portion, like in ancient China with Taoism and Mongolian shamanism and all that, we defined it as an archaic technique for ecstasy. And that was like the goal, was to get to that mystical altered state. And it didn't have to do with anything particular. It just had this awareness that there's consciousness and we need to do something to interface with it, and it will cause change.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about what you do because it's so shamanic in my assessment.
Yeah, there are a lot of different techniques out there, and they're all very exciting. And yes, I have a lot of different practices under my belt, or could I do more? Sure, but then it just starts to dilute itself. I'd rather focus my energy on these techniques, and if they work for someone, beautiful. If they don't, there's so much more out there to experience as well, and I encourage people, just find what works for them, find what resonates with them. I'm getting more and more people coming to me because they want a more natural healing, and they shy away from traditional counseling, the talk therapy, right? They shy away from it. Maybe they've tried it before, they just didn't like it. Yes, we do talk in here. I need to get to know people. I need to understand where the challenges might lie, where we need to dive into. But it's not just talk therapy, right? We do the EFT and we do the hypnotherapy, we're doing energy healing and, reprogramming the subconscious, because the subconscious, even Dr. Lipton has talked about it recently. Because I have spoken with Dr. Lipton personally a couple of times, and it's like, the only way that you can change your program in the subconscious is through repetition and hypnosis, meaning an altered state of consciousness, right? So, and so in order to do that, that's why I combine the cognitive behavioral therapy with what I do with EFT and hypnotherapy. And he loves EFT as well, just so you know. It's very impactful, and he loves Qigong as well, a lot of energy work. But cognitive behavioral therapy is mostly homework that I give to people. I'm like, here are things I want you to do. Here are things I want you to repeat to yourself. Here are things I want you to consciously choose when something arises. So you make a conscious decision because you know it's happening. Oh, I'm saying this to myself now. Stop. Change it. Right. So that's all part of cognitive behavioral therapy. It's you are in control. You are your own healer. I am here to guide you through your healing journey. I am not healing you. I'm guiding you into healing yourself.
Right. It's like Dante's Inferno. The Virgil and Dante, they take a walk, but it's not like anyone's being drugged or forced to walk through hell.
Right.
So can I want to unpack EFT, and I want to acknowledge you for saying Dr. Bruce Lipton, because we had an external conversation about him a couple times. Just picked up the book Biology of Belief. And what's Dr. Bruce Lipton's website so people can check into him?
I think it's brucelipton.com. It could be Dr. Bruce Lipton, but yeah, you can Google him. Trust me. He's got his own website. He's even got a YouTube channel. He's kind of a quirky guy. He's got some funny, interesting things.
brucelipton.com.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
And he is best known for epigenetics. That's his biology of belief is epigenetics. And he stands by it. And he's just recording. I think he just finished recording a second season of something on the Gaia channel. I forget what it's called. And again, he's talking about epigenetics. And he stands by that. Just over 90% of all people's ailments are stress related. They are not genetic. And that includes cancer. Everything. And it's the environment, your mental environment, your body environment, the environment outside of your body, including energy, right? That environment is activating or deactivating things inside you to make these changes. So people who have chronic stress, people who are in chronic sympathetic nervous system states, where, they're eating on the run, they're eating in front of the TV, they're eating while they're working, they can't sleep. So, I need more time. So they sleep 4 hours a night. I can't sleep more than 4 hours. And they wear it like a badge of honor. And then they get a cancer diagnosis and wonder why. Because their body is never in that rest and repair state for the 8 hours that a body needs, because they're not taking care of their mind. They're not taking care of their energy. They're not taking care of what they're putting in their body. And the environment, the stress, he calls it stress in general is what
distress specifically
puts a body in dis-ease, right? So yeah, it's
very nice. Very, very accurate. And I'm excited to read that book. Just picked it up over the weekend. So I don't know if this is too divergent. Do you know Dr. Richard Bandler? You heard of him?
Sounds familiar, but I don't know him real well.
Okay. So Dr. Richard Bandler has some interesting storytelling online. And all the people that have that had the potential and chance to be on my show. I was in Florida, funny story, traveling with my family at the time. He was in Florida, Orlando area for doing a NLP training with his preeminent student, who I forget the name of, and his student's son. And I showed up at the hotel to be like, hey, you know, I'd like to interview this guy. Let me in. So I walked into the training room. They were kind of on a break. He wasn't in the room, and his main guy approached me and he's like, "Who are you guys?" And I'm like, "I'm with Entheoradio. I want to interview Dr. Richard Bandler. You know, give me a few minutes with him, whatever. Maybe I could just make an acquaintance. We can do this another time." So this gentleman is like, "Here, talk to my son. He handles all the press stuff." This guy comes up to me, and it's just this like guy in his 20s, but he's been in it. He's been steeped in neuro-linguistic programming his entire life. He somehow was like able to put us in a trance, walk us out to the parking lot, and give us his card, and make us feel like this was this was what we wanted, and then leave before I could protest, before I could say anything. Like, I was like, what just happened? And like the card has his name on it and stuff, and it was very memorable, and it has a very common NLP trick on it. And you turn the card over, it's his face. It says, "Remember me?" ? And I'm like, what just happened? We didn't talk to anybody. We didn't get any answers. And I was just like really impressed by that. So that of everyone who's had the opportunity to be on my show to talk about hypnosis, you're the first one who's actually come on. But I thought it was really impressive that they could
yes. Some people are very, very
sort
good
us
at
out.
that. Very, very good at that. Yes.
They sorted us out with us feeling good about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, this feels good. Yeah. Walking with you the parking lot, I got your card, it's all good. And I'm like, and they made us feel like they had, in the short amount of time, like I was in there 10 minutes, like they had already checked into our background. They were like, "Oh yeah, we saw your podcast and this and that." And it was like, whether or not they did, there was this feeling of like, yeah, we're walking out and it's good. Right? It was just the strangest experience.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's definitely a skill that if the longer you practice it, the better you get at it in just a moment's notice like that. And I don't like practicing it on people against their will, let's say, right? So I am one of those that I'm a big proponent of free will. Even though I can even do surrogate treatment, which means, I connect energetically and I can do healing on people as them, and they're not physically with me. Mm-hmm. I don't just do it. I don't treat my partner. I don't treat my daughter. I ask for permission. I'll say to my daughter, "Do I have your permission, to help you with your anxiety? I can, do some tapping surrogately for you, but I won't just do that because I feel it's an invasion of someone's path. I think everyone has their own journey for a purpose, and that might include challenges and suffering, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But everybody's here to experience different things. And so I shouldn't insert myself to change that unless a person willingly asks me or gives me permission to do that and to help them heal and, see different things about themselves that they're not seeing and things like that. So I don't impose myself on people without their permission. That's just my own
yeah
value.
Because I feel like there's a lot of dark psychology in neuro-linguistic programming communities. Sure. And it's like sales techniques and pickup techniques and influence techniques and all of that.
Absolutely.
And if you don't balance that out with a really healthy set of boundaries and respect and honor
Yeah,
other people as life forms in the way you want to be respected and honored, then it
absolutely.
never really goes where it needs to go in a single lifetime. It just becomes
Right.
karma.
You got it.
But to kind of harp on the subject, there was this funny story that Richard Bandler told on stage about Milton Erickson.
Okay.
And I can't remember the whole story, and I'd love to see this. And I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen him talk about Milton Erickson, or anyone
Mm-mm.
talk about Milton? I've seen Milton Erickson on stage, and him talking. You've seen him, right?
Yes.
And it's basically the summary of the story is Bandler heard about Erickson and Ericksonian hypnotherapy, and he wanted to learn.
Right.
And so he felt like he had an altered state thing going. He talks a lot about his upbringing in the Haight-Ashbury sort of part of San Francisco and doing a lot of drugs. And he's like, all right, I've been in altered states a lot.
Right.
I'm studying hypnosis. I'm kind of young and brash. Let's see if I can go drop in on this very famous, strongly inductive hypnosis guy. And so he travels to Arizona. He shows up at Milton's house, knocks on the door, and he's immediately knocked into like these altered states. He's talking about how he got knocked into a trance, and so he got pulled into the house and had a long conversation. And there were points in this story where Bandler's talking to Erickson, and Erickson's wife walks in, and he's observing the way Erickson causes these trance states, and there's a description of Erickson grabbing his wedding ring when his wife's in the room and saying the ring, and the woman snaps into a trance state and she like leaves the room or something like that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it's funny because these stories of neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis sound like the same stories and things that I've observed in Qigong communities, where a
Yeah.
master, somebody's sensei or whatever, is higher in their energetic field, and they'll just reach out and they'll be like, boom. And the other person starts convulsing or having an orgasm or something, and they fall back and someone has to catch them.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure all of this out. I know it's all consciousness playing with itself. And I see it with the Shakers and the Quakers and the Christian community too, the snake dancers and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah,
So
it's all
where's it going, Mecca? Guide us.
again, it is a great tool and technique for healing, but it can be used in a lot of different ways. And so you have to be careful what you're getting yourself into and to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. Unfortunately, it can be used inappropriately.
The same with psychoactive drugs and plants and
Sure.
stuff like that. Yeah, like MK Ultra, you borrows techniques from neurolinguistic programming and hypnotherapy.
Absolutely. Psychedelics have been researched for a long time, and it's been, the whole purpose of some of these studies was not for good, and you have to really understand who you're seeing to use the process, either the medicine or the process like, hypnotherapy, knowing who your therapist is, knowing who your guide is, to make sure that it's being used for healing purposes, for good, right? It's unfortunate. I mean, you'll find that anywhere. I mean, salespeople are great. The thing is that because I do what I do, salespeople don't work on me. Because I tell them, like, I see what you're doing. Stop. I've had people like show me pictures of their family. I'm like, is that even your family? I don't know. Just you're not going to try to play on my emotions now, right? It's, they try all kinds of things to really pull you in. And I see all the tricks and I just smile. I'm like, no, it's not going to happen. And, it happens in your commercials. I mean, all the commercials, marketing is manipulation.
Yeah.
I love it. We'll be watching something. My partner goes, "Oh, now I want pizza for dinner." I'm like, "Of course you do," because
Because you're suggestible.
you're so highly suggestible. It's just crazy. I'm like, "No, breathe through it. Here, tap it out. You'll be fine."
Tap it out. It's funny. So that's where we're going next in this conversation. EFT, what is it, and how do you present it? And for our listeners who are still with us and excited about what Mecca has to offer, any crazy hypno enthusiasts like me, we're gonna do a very special separate video of us tapping through some common problems with trips and some of these psychoactive psychedelic experiences. But
Yes.
yeah, tell us about EFT.
So EFT is emotional freedom techniques. It was created by Gary Craig, and you can Google him and you'll see all kinds of videos. He was very popular working with war veterans coming back from Vietnam. A lot of post-traumatic stress disorder going on, a lot of challenges that they were having. And people know it as tapping, so you may have heard of it, but didn't hear it called EFT, but heard it called tapping. It became kind of popular about, I don't know, 30 years ago. It kind of hit the stage there and people started talking about it, and then it died down, and so it's there, but it's not, spoken about a whole lot. And it's so effective. And what it does is it utilizes the same concepts as acupressure and acupuncture, right? The different pressure points along the energy meridians of the body. And knowing that traumas and emotions, right, are stored in your body. And they can cause challenges if they're not good emotions, right?
Yeah.
And so we try to release that from the body, from the energy bodies. Okay. So I try not to get too deep into the energy bodies with clients because not everybody understands the different layers of the auras, and that our true self is not just within the physical body, but it actually expands outwards, but there's a lot to heal within the physical body and outside of the physical body. So EFT works on that and works on releasing and re-imprinting the emotions to trauma. So there are a lot of different techniques within the EFT practice, and one of them that's popular is called matrix reimprinting, where you actually detach the negative emotion from a memory of trauma and you reimprint a more powerful memory. You change the memory through EFT and hypnotherapy combined. You change the memory to say, okay, well, what do you wish you would have said? Do you wish that you could bring someone in to protect you? Do you, what does your young self need? And so there's a way to do that through matrix reimprinting and EFT. But EFT is tapping where you're setting an intention. The more specific, the more effective it is. Some people say, oh, well, I'll just use a general statement. I don't want to be anxious anymore. I don't want to be stressed anymore. Sure, that might do something, give you some immediate relief, but not necessarily long-term. The more specific you are, the better. So even in videos of Gary Craig working with veterans, they go over a specific memory. One gentleman had a memory of, unfortunately, dead children in a rice field. And he had this negative, this reaction come up inside him as he was recounting. And so Gary Craig took him through the tapping through until he could tell the story without any emotional connection to it any longer. And felt free of that, and then was able to continue the story. There are a lot of different techniques, and movie techniques, tell the story, tap and talk, and there's a lot of different things, tearless trauma, and depending on what a client's challenge is, will then tell me, okay, where do we need to go? What technique should we start with, and start healing that? There is a very standard classic. You can Google it, and you can search it on YouTube and find, the classic recipe.
Yeah, it says the EFT basic recipe by founder Gary Craig, YouTube.
Yes.
Check it.
So,
that's cool.
Yeah, the basic recipe, but there's more to the basic recipe, right? And he also teaches the 9 gamut. We also have finger points that we can use. We have wrist points we can use. There are a lot of extra pressure points. So
like for our video listeners, it's like this kind of, right?
For the setup is the karate chop point right down in here, in the fleshy part of the hand. So you can set up by doing this, or you can do setup by doing what's called the sore spot, but a lot of people have a hard time finding that. But if you find it, then you just rub that, and that's part of the setup. In the classic recipe, it's the top of the head, it's the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, the chin right at the crease, collarbone, under the arm. So right where like a woman's bra strap would go. Yep. Under the arm. Some people call it the monkey point, right? Because you look like,
because your arm looks like a monkey.
Right. Yep. And then the karate chop. That is your classic. Those are the only points there. Now, I add a lot of extra stuff to my standard for people. I have the back of the neck, I have the thymus point, which is a breastbone. And a lot of people ask, well, why this? If you notice, when people are upset, they're emotionally distressed, a lot of people will put their hand here.
Well, yeah, and then there's this one too, prayer position.
Yes, but you're stimulating, right? You're stimulating the breastbone. This is the healing spot, right? It's connected to your heart chakra. And when people are trying to comfort you, where do they touch you? On the back part, right? On your back.
On your back, yeah.
It's on the opposite side. This is the spot that's for healing. So when you're feeling upset, just tap right there. Just tap and breathe. And it starts to calm you. And that's what I tell people when they're, starting to relive certain moments. Just tap and breathe. Get yourself at a baseline. Get yourself calm. If I have someone sitting in front of me and they're starting to really get upset, abreact, and I'm calming them down. So I tell them, just tap. Tap here. Tap your collarbone. Okay? Collarbone points, breastbone. Collarbone points, breastbone. Just keep breathing. Nice. And it calms people down. Yeah. So there's a lot of good things out there. I even have something on my YouTube channel. It's free on collarbone breathing, how to just rebalance yourself and bring yourself down. So there's a certain breath work and collarbone points and different finger positions that you can use to calm yourself. So we can do general things, like I said, but I know that your clients would like some specific items. So we have a couple of things to work on for content on that to help people, because you can do that even before you get ready to take a test, working through your test anxiety, working through why you have test anxiety. I've helped, a 15-year-old with that recently on her test anxiety, and there are little tricks. So a little trick for test anxiety, so that people don't really know that you're doing EFT, is tapping the ring finger with your thumb instead of with the
Huh.
other hand, so it's obvious. Or you
Okay.
just pinch both sides of your ring finger, and you can just sit there, and it doesn't have to be hard. And right at the nail bed, just pinching the sides,
Funny.
and it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to squeeze it till it hurts. I mean, just, squeeze it a little bit and sit there. And it doesn't matter which hand, you can switch hands and just kind of hold it and breathe. That is a very important part for anxiety. Under the arm is as well, but that would look weird in a classroom, and people are like, what are they doing, right? So I tell people, I'm like, visualize it. If you visualize it, that is also pretty powerful. Even if you're not doing it physically, visualizing doing it while you're just squeezing your ring finger and breathing,
Yeah.
very useful,
Yep.
helping people calm themselves. So little tricks like that I teach people, depending what it is they're struggling with, to use those pressure points and EFT. So we work through the test anxiety in office, right? Why do you have anxiety? A lot of times for kids, especially teenagers, it's expectation, right? Expectation by parents, expectation by friend groups, because everybody always knows me as the smart one, so I have to do well. Well, okay, we have to help release that. You see what I'm saying? So we
Yeah.
start working through that, and then I give them little shortcuts to do in the moment, to kind of help them bring that back, bring yourself back to center type of thing.
So much value in this conversation with Mecca Wagner Brown. I want those of us who are listening still to jump onto the next video set of content. We're going to be providing an amazing EFT technique for our trippers, for people who might trip a lot, people who are anxious about tripping, people who might even think of themselves as someone who might have a bad trip and need something to bring them back or to be prepared for a good trip.
Yes.
So thank you. I'm going to wrap this a little conversation up and do an outro. Any closing words, Mecca?
Yes. I am definitely a supporter of psychedelic assisted therapy. And I think the partnership with psychedelics and the therapy that I offer and other people like me with other techniques offer is the perfect pairing. I see often that a lot of people will only do psychedelics, but they're not really healing and dealing with what's coming up for them. They have epiphanies, but they're keeping it within their own world, and, needing to work that out is very important for the healing process, and vice versa. I find that, a lot of people have their walls up, their guard up. Even when I put them into a hypnotic state, they're still questioning. And microdosing can help drop that and relax them so that our sessions are more impactful. So I really do see a future arising. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, a lot of talk around psychedelic assisted therapy, and I think it's a very exciting future. And I'm very excited to work with anyone who would like to do, again, microdosing while in therapy, because you need to be able to work with me and talk and such, but I think it'd be very, very, very useful for therapy.
Absolutely. I'll speak to that. I did take a session with you, and I did take a microdose before taking that session with you. And I felt like it really supported me that day. It was a hard day afterwards, but it was a good session that really dropped me in as a preparation for challenges.
Yes, for sure.
Let's see. Would you plug your website, please, so people can find you?
Yes. So my website is mindfulinnerchange.com. That's MindfulInnerChange, mindfulinnerchange.com. All of my information's on there, my email address, my phone number. You can message me from there to request a free consult. Even links to my social media are in the upper left corner, including my YouTube channel. So just browse the site. I have lots of information on there, including links out to books that I have written that are for sale on Amazon and other things that can be purchased.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Mecca Wagner Brown and Hugh T. Alkemi. You can find some products that sponsor this show, mushroomshaman.shop and mushroomshaman.com, Mushroom Shaman brand. We do help people with herbalistic knowledge, shamanism, mycology, and finding the right supplements for the new and avant-garde treatments that we've discussed on this show. And then you can also find things like ormus and other tinctures that I make as an herbalist on Alkemi, ALKEMI.gold. And you can listen to our show and find it on social media in a lot of different places, including Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. I think iTunes carries us, and a whole lot of others. So check us out. If you're listening on YouTube, add us to your Spotify and so much more. iHeartRadio. Thank you again for listening. And this is Captain Hugh signing out. Say bye, Mecca.
Bye.